What's up guys, Professor Protoss here. Welcome back to another tutorial video. If you watched my last videos, you know that we talked about macro, multitasking, build orders, hotkeys, and other useful techniques. But today we're going to focus on army composition and army management. Since I'm a Protoss player, we're going to focus mostly on Protoss vs Terran and Protoss vs Zerg. Right now I'm playing a custom game where I'm a Protoss player against a Terran computer and a Zerg computer, where I let them take over the entire map. I want to mainly focus first off on Protoss vs Terran, how to engage that matchup, what units you should make, and then where to go from there. So let's just dive right in. So for starters, the most important unit in the Protoss vs Terran matchup is the Dragoon. Dragoon with range is very important against Protoss vs Terran, because the Terran can't go Marine Medic at the beginning. Terran always goes Vulture Tank, and the Dragoon defeats that. Observer is super important, because the Terran is usually secluded to these three bases here. Their main, their natural, and their third. This is Fighting Spirit, a very common map. This is usually what you have to deal with as Protoss vs Terran. A Terran will normally take their main, and take their expansion, and there's nothing you can do about it. They'll also take their third very easily, and there's, again, nothing you can do. You could try to press your luck and run up their ramp, but typically they'll have siege tanks here, spider mines here, spider mines here, spider mines here, and siege tanks here. So there's not much you can do to just engage directly into that. Dragoon with Observer is very important to have as one control unit hotkey. You typically want to have your Dragoons with Observer right in front of the Terran base. You also want to have observers around their map. I typically have an observer at the Terran natural, in the Terran main, counting their factories so I can see how many units they're building, and then at the 4th and 5th base. Maybe this one would be patrolling between these two bases. Whoops. And maybe another one in the middle. Observer is super important in the Protoss vs Terran matchup. Knowing what the Terran is doing at all times will make things much easier for you. It's much easier to expand, build more gateways, build more units based off knowing exactly what the Terran is doing. You don't usually want to engage their army directly because you'll lose. A Protoss army almost always loses to a Terran army. Terran army is just so much stronger than Protoss. So what you want to do with your army is have Dragoons right outside the front of their base. Typically, I'd have my Dragoons like right here. My control group would be much bigger than that. I'd have a full control group of Dragoons right here, right in front of their face. And I would allow the Terran to take their main, their natural, and the third. There's nothing you can really do about that. But if I'm in their face, like right here, how are they supposed to take their fourth? A Terran army will unsiege and move out, but you can have your whole army stationed right in front of their base and move right in and crush them. So having observers, knowing what the Terran is doing, knowing how many factories they have, how many buildings they're making, is very important in the Protoss vs Terran matchup. Having your Dragoons just outside of their base, just outside of their range, is also very important. You never want to push your luck. You never want to engage a Terran army out of position. You never want to throw units away. And you never want to engage them if you don't have to. What you should be doing with Protoss versus Terran is taking map control. Being right in their range and putting pressure on them, but outside of siege range, allows you to take more bases and put some pressure on them. And when they decide to move out, you can rush right in. The other thing you want to know is that if you're engaging a Terran army, let's say the Terran decides to move out with a huge army. And I have my army stationed right outside their base. And they siege here, maybe here, and I move in. If you attack with your Dragoons, and your second control group is a bunch of Zealots, which it should be, by the way, and your third control group is High Templars, and you engage the Terran army right outside their base, and you lose, typically you would send your Zealots in, and your High Templars in, and then your Dragoons in. If you lose your Zealots and your High Templars, it's super duper important to pull your Dragoons back just outside of their range. Never let your Dragoons all die. If you let your Dragoons all die, the game is over. The Dragoons cost gas, which is very important in this game. The Zealots you can replace. We can make 1,000,000 Zealots in like 2 seconds if you have enough gateways. Right? So Zealots are here to suicide their lives for ire, and the Dragoons are more important. If your Zealots all die, pull your Dragoons back, make more Zealots. The only way to beat a Terran army as a Protoss is to have more gateways and more base for them. Do not engage directly into siege tanks, do not engage the spider mines, and do not engage in the missile turrets. If you do that, you will lose. What you want to do is engage when they unsiege, engage when you have more gateways, engage when you have more money. That's the best way to win Protoss vs. Terran. I will play the longest, most drawn out game. If I can take more base than them, and they are forced to attack into me, I will never lose. If I'm forced to attack into them, it's much harder. But remember, if you lose your Zealots, pull your Dragoons back. Do not press it. So really all you need against Protoss vs. Terran is Zealots, Dragoons, and High Templar. The other most important unit that you should make is the Arbiter. Okay, don't worry about any other units in this matchup. The Arbiter can stasis 4 to 5 tanks at once. The Arbiter can recall. The Arbiter can cloak your units. Arbiter is so important in Protoss vs. Terran. So always go Dragoon, Zealot, High Templar, Arbiter. Okay? Do not make any other units. Those are the units you want to make. So that's Protoss vs. Terran. Make sure to upgrade. Make sure to engage only when they're moving out. Have observers all over the map. Observers are super important. And never engage directly into a Terran army. You will definitely lose. So always engage when you need to. Chip away at the army. Pull back. Make more units. Have 20, 30 gateways. Take the map control. Stay in their face. Put pressure on them. Okay, let's talk about Protoss vs. Zerg. Protoss vs. Zerg is very, very simple for me. Okay, the main thing you need to know if Protoss vs. Zerg is the Zealot versus Zergling. A Zealot will take 3 shots to kill a Zergling unless you have +1 weapons compared to their armor. So that means if they have 0 armor, you should be +1 attack. If they have 1 armor, you should be +2 attack. If they have 2 armor, you should be +3 attack. And when they have 3 armor, it becomes much, much harder. Let me explain why. So if you look at the Zealot, you'll see that 3 attack, it says 16 + 6 damage. But that's completely wrong. Kind of. What happens with the Zealot, it's a very special unit. And that when you see its animation, it looks like it punches with its right, then its left fist. That's completely true. What happens with the Zealot is it's not 16 + 6, but it's really 8 + 3, 8 + 3. It makes a huge difference versus the Zerg. If the Zerg has 3 armor, it's 8 + 3 - 3, 8 + 3 - 3. That means it does absolutely 0 extra damage, which is complete bullshit, but it is part of the game. So that means if you're not 1 attack higher than the Zerg's defense, you will do 0 extra damage as a Zealot. So always be 1 attack higher than the Zerg defense. 2-shotting a Zergling is way better than 3-shotting a Zergling. Attack is the most important thing you can make with the Zealot. Attack is the most important thing you can make with the Corsair. Always make weapons first, then make armor and shields later. Let's talk about other important units in Protoss vs. Zerg. When I play Protoss vs. Zerg, typically I'd fast expand, I'd make a Corsair to scout their base, and then I'd make +1 Zealots and +1 speed. If they make Hydralisk, Zealots and High Templars are great counters to Hydralisk. The Zealot speed and the High Templars with Psystorm are good against Hydralisk. But let's say the Zerg decides to go Lurkers. Well then, Zealots with speed and High Templars do absolutely jack shit against Lurkers. The best way to counter Lurkers as Protoss, and let's say the Lurker continue, is to make Dragoons with range, Observers, and High Templars. It's very gas intensive. You will get stuck in your main 2 bases. It's very hard to break out of a Lurker contain unless you know what to do. Don't press Zealots, make Dragoons with range, make High Templar, make some Zealots, to deal with some Hydralisks and some Zerglings. But you need to save your gas. The other thing about High Templar versus Lurkers is I've noticed a lot of new players will will storm lurkers twice. This is a bad mistake. Storming lurkers once is way better than storming them twice. Yes, 2 storms will kill a lurker in 1 hit, but 1 storm will take it down to 10 HP, roughly, and you can kill it with a Dragoon shot or a Zealot punch. Using 2 storms is completely wasteful. Do not use 2 storms on 1 Zergling or 1 lurker. Zerg will always spread their lurkers. So when breaking a lurker contain, storm the lurker once, storm the other lurker once. Hopefully you can see some Hydralisk clumps and storm those Hydralisks, but do not storm lurkers twice. You need those storms. They are the most important spell you can use against Protoss or Zerg. Another thing we need to talk about is Dragoon Micro. Dragoons have terrible AI in this game. However, they're really good when you can right click near the opponent and then press hold position. This will ensure that you get your shot off. And you can stay out of the range of Zealots. You can stay out of the range of Zerglings. You can stay out of the range of Marines. And you can even stay out of the range of Vultures. Always know that right click and hold position is the best way to micro Dragoons. I've also heard of Dragoons getting very stuck if you try to attack move like this. So hold position is super important for the Dragoon army. So let's just recap a few things. When playing against Terran as Protoss, what you want to do is make Dragoons. What you want to do is make observers. You want to take map controls. You want to take more bases. You want to have observers all over the place. You want to see what the Terran's doing at the 3rd, how many factories they have, how many units they're making, what are they doing at their natural, when are they unsieging, when are they moving out. I put 4, 5, or 6 observers around the map. Super important in that matchup. Dragoons will stay in their face, right outside their base. Do not let them move out. If they move out, you come in. You attack. If you lose your Zealots, you back off. Dragoons by themselves suck. You cannot lose all your Zealots and keep attacking. You will back off, make more Zealots, and attack again. Protoss vs. Zerg. You need the +1 weapons. +1 weapons is huge. You need Psystorm. Psystorm is the second most important thing. You need a composition of Zealots and High Templars. Unless they mass Lurkers, you need to add Dragoons. We didn't talk about late game armies, but if Zerg starts to add Ultralisk, you need Archons. Archons are super important against Zerglings and Ultralisks. They can tank a lot of damage, which is very important, because Cracklings will just destroy Zealots. So you need Archons to tank damage, and they deal a lot of splash damage, especially with +3. So Archons, Zealots, and High Templar are how you counter Ultralisk and Zerglings. If they add Defiler, you need Reaver. Defiler, Dark Swarm, Archons are shit. They cannot damage under Dark Swarm. Reaver, however, can damage under Dark Swarm at full damage. Dark Templar can as well. However, Dark Templar aren't that great typically, but they're good for harassing. So, playing against Zerg, Zealot, High Templar, good against Hydros and Zergling. Dragoon, good against Lurker. Archon, good against Ultralisk. Reaver, good against Defilers with Dark Swarm. Those are the units you should be building. Protoss vs. Terran. Dragoons with Observer, good against Spider Mines. Dragoons with Observer, good against an initial Terran push. Dragoons with Speedlots, good against a bigger Terran army. Dragoons, Speedlots, Psystorm against a slightly bigger Terran army. Dragoons, Speedlots, Psystorm, and Arbiter with Stasis, good against a humongous Terran army. And a 200 Terran army, you will always lose. You need more bases than the Terran, and you need more gateways. That's the only way to defeat a Terran when it comes to 200. So always mix in High Templars, mix in Arbiters against Terran, mix in High Templars, mix in Arbiters against Zerg. Watch what they're doing. Observers are so important. Know what your opponent is doing. I know I didn't play much in this video tutorial, but we just need to talk about what beats what. We'll go over some replays later, but I just wanted to just talk about like what units beat what, why the attack is so important, why map positioning and observers are so important against Terran. Those are just things you need to know. Real quick, I want to touch up on Protoss vs. Protoss. In Protoss vs. Protoss, Dragoon beats Zealot. Dragoon beats Zealot with speed. Dragoon loses to Zealot with speed with High Templar because Storm just destroys destroys Dragoon. Archon beats Zealot and High Templar. So, typically the match would go like this. Dragoons versus Dragoons. Someone goes Speed Zealot. Dragoons versus Speed Zealot with other Speed Zealots. Someone had High Templar. High Templar storm the Protoss Dragoons. If they start to mass Zealot, you stop making Psystorm and you make Archon. Archon defeats Zealot. That's the Protoss versus Protoss matchup. It's kind of more complicated than that, but all you really need to know is if your opponent's making a lot of Dragoons, you make Psystorm. If they're making a lot of Zealots, you make Archon. If it's early game, it's just Dragoon versus Dragoon with maybe some Reaver. But Observer, so important in Protoss versus Protoss because you need to know where their army is at. You need to know what bases they're taking. And you need to know when to engage. Never engage your opponent if you're at a bad position. Never engage them if they have an army advantage. Pull back. It's not important to just suicide your army. You need to save your army, wait for the opportune time, watch what your opponent's doing. When they move out, come in for the kill. So hopefully you guys think this video is okay. We're going to have more tutorial videos about micromanagement. This one I just want to touch up briefly about unit compositions and then important things to the matchup. I'm going to have a replay analysis later. We're going to have my replays showcase, other players' replays showcase, and if you want to submit your own replays, send them to professorprotoss@gmail.com. And I just want to touch up on one more thing. I'm close to 100 subscribers. I have a surprise for you guys. If I reach 100 subscribers, I have a special giveaway going on. So once we hit 100, I'm going to let you guys know about that special giveaway. Until then, please like my videos, subscribe, and I'll see you later. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.